Hey, George for Title, Inflation.us. We're here in Southern California. We're going to cover a story about living free. Most people have your insurance bills that you got to pay, your medical insurance bills, your car registration bills. I mean, the amount of bills that people get can crush a family. We're going to talk about a whole new way to live, not just free of bills, not just free of extra expenses and taxes and all these other regulations and burdens that the government puts upon you. I'm talking about an entire change of lifestyle. This is the beginnings of an off the grid, off the urban grid series, Living Free. It's kind of based upon the free man on the land, and we're going to find out more. We have two gentlemen here that have agreed for us to kind of profile what they have done over the last, 10, 20, 30 years in their quest to live free.
Out of high school, I was lucky enough to get a union job, Teamsters, working for UPS. About 5 years later, I got married, and obviously it was a part-time job even though it paid well. So I ended up getting two union jobs, and I worked it's actually the largest private employer in San Bernardino for a major supermarket chain. And I worked two jobs for 5 years, trying to make ends meet. And then we moved and decided to buy a house, and I actually got to go full-time at the store. So I did that for another 21 years. And when we moved in the house, I was lucky enough to be able to meet all the bills on I was working 6 days a week, but my wife was able to stay home and take care of the children, and we were living the American dream. It was like, we had this beautiful home. I have two beautiful kids, and it was great. But within a few years, we weren't able to make it. One of the things that when I was working graveyard at the store, I was listening to all these AM radio stations, like Coast to Coast and similar shows. And one thing you started to figure out was the basic problem in our country and probably around the world is our money system. We seem to have one group of people who can create money, and the other people that have to work for their money. And I don't know, I guess I overreacted, but I got really mad. So I sold that house. Obviously, my wife didn't like it at all, and decided to try to get as simple as a life I could. I got rid of all my credit cards, tried to get rid of any kind of government, I consider them contracts like Social Security and driver's licenses, and just try to see if I could, in my mind, live free, or at least have the government do what it said it's supposed to. If you read the Constitution for the United States and for the Constitution for the state of California, the purpose of government originally was to protect our inalienable rights. And it seems to me they're supposed to be working for us, and as you look around, it seems to me we're working for them. So I had a problem with that. So I decided, I actually went back to school and studied law, because I found that law is what they're using to entrap all of us. Law was designed to protect our rights, but like when you go to court and law is by definition the use of force. It authorizes the use of force. So in other words, if you it authorizes them to pull you over. It authorizes them to take your wages to pay a tax. They can evict you out of your home. That's what the court system now is. They're rationalizing their system and forcing the people to do something. And it's supposed to be, you're supposed to have due process. But when you find out how the courts are running now and the way they should be running, you find out it's all show. It's just a big circus show. I've actually filed a motion. When you understand these courts are not constitutional courts. There are at one time there was all these courts in California, and in 1998 they merged them. So when you go walk into a court, you may be in this jurisdiction or this jurisdiction or this jurisdiction, and if you don't know where you're at. I refuse to accept that I'm one of their subjects. I'm a people, and you're supposed to be working there. Now, I don't want to do anything immoral. I just want them to protect my rights. And so when you go in there with that attitude, you can have some effect, but they will kick in. You know, this whole system under the 13th Amendment is considered voluntary. But as soon as you decide not to volunteer, then they have a problem with that.
This government's just getting out of control. They think the Constitution's a joke. Yeah, I've had plenty of confrontations with the police. In one situation, a cop even pulled his billy club out and told me, that's the Constitution. So when you've got men who are supposed to be law enforcement who act with this ruthless mug mentality, and they're supposed to be protecting us, we've got a serious problem in this country. I know there's some good policemen out there, but I'll say it right here in front of the world, there's not very many. The other problem we have in this country with the police is they know absolutely nothing about the law, and that's their job. You know, they put a tin badge on these guys' chests, send them out there with a revolver and a billy club, and now all of a sudden they're experts in the law. So I'm sorry, it don't work that way. You know, that's the way the gang members do it. Now, if you want to be associated with gang members, which that's what's happening, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to lose all your respect. The men with the uniform need to protect the Constitution. And it wasn't too long ago I heard a testimony by Sheriff Mack from Arizona. Now, there's a man who got convicted one day and realized, hey, I'm not protecting the people. I'm destroying them. I'm just running around with my billy club collecting revenue for some bankrupt corporation, which they call a police department or sheriff department. And that's what it's all about, just collecting money and beating down on innocent women and families that can't even afford gas for their cars. That's not the policeman's job. I think my wake-up call was, who is the IRS? And how come they're taking all this money from me and they're giving me absolutely nothing except a hard time? So I started researching into that, and then that it just expanded and exploded from there. Most government agencies today are just basically parasites. They produce nothing. They just suck the lifeblood out of the people. Now, the reason this is all taking place, for the most part, I believe, is we live in a debt society, debt-based society. The money's all backwards. Technically, there is no money. If you don't have a silver coin in your pocket or a gold coin in your pocket, you're a vagrant. You have nothing. So this is all connected, I think, with a Social Security number. And I realized, you know what? That's not quite the mark of the beast yet, but it's almost there. It's a precursor. That number, people worship that number. There's two things in this country people worship. They don't worship a man and his handshake. They worship a piece of plastic with his picture on it, and they worship that number. It's like, I got a cell phone, but you can't believe the trouble it went to get it without this evil number. It's just amazing to me. You can try and send some money to somebody from a local drugstore on the other side of the world. Oh, if you don't have that piece of plastic, we can't ship that money. It's like, it's incredible. I said, what's wrong with me? I'm standing here in front of you. You want to just put a picture frame around my face? Let's pretend I'm the ID card.